Speaking of Sanders, let me go ahead and get this going here. So, Dr. Oh man, it just shrank on me. Hold on, I'm sorry. My got it, it's being recorded. All right. The screen changed when it came to being recorded. Why is this not opening? Here we go. So, Dr. Elaine Sanders, Dr. Elaine Sanders is the co-founder of Harlem Girls Inc. and the CEO of Empowerment Specialists for EMS. Believes that there are two essential elements in life that determine success: empowerment and motivation. She knows this from accumulated firsthand experience. Elaine is an author and adjunct professor. She served as dean and department chair of general education at Pillar College in New Jersey. Her areas of expertise are in business, where she teaches courses on team dynamics, principles of leadership, project management, public speaking, business administration, and management, college foundations and innovation, and organizational communication. Over the years, she has pursued a variety of interests, including stints as a personal stylist and event planner for clients in the NBA and music industry while in college. She even appeared as a reporter in an independent film, Paying the Price, before embarking upon her passion in the field of education. Elaine has spent over 15 years as an educator in vocational and higher education institutions. Elaine knows she has been commissioned to enlighten, empower, and motivate others into their God ordained destiny. Without further ado, Dr. Elaine Sanders.
Thank you, Alonzo. Thank you, Charles, for having me. I'm excited to be here and just talking about stepping into our purpose. So we're going to get started. So thank you. So stepping into our purpose, you can advance the slide for me. Today, we will cover purpose, legacy, and wealth building. And these are things that are not necessarily talked about in our communities, but today we want to change that conversation. Advance the slide, please. Who I was and what did I see? I was born to a high school graduate and a high school dropout. Why is that important? Because that was my first introduction to purpose, legacy, and wealth. Where I was born and raised in Harlem in the New York City Housing Authority, AKA the projects, right? That was another part of my environment outside of my home, being able to see what people thought about, again, purpose, legacy, as well as wealth. What did I see there? I saw, not everyone, but I did see people on drugs. I saw poor health and living conditions. Again, how does that tie into purpose, legacy, and wealth? There was also the public versus the private personas, where, you know, if you went out to the store, you had to make sure you were dressed from head to toe with the most fashionable things. So that was the public, the nicest cars parked in the housing development, versus the private, which was more not, do you have life insurance? Are you investing? Are you saving? So sometimes we deal with, or I grew up watching public versus private personas, because that's how we get to the next bullet point, which is people taking collections to bury loved ones. So people would come and knock on the door and say, you know, Mr. Johnson has passed away. We're trying to help them bury their families. Today, that would be the version of the GoFundMe, right? There are people who think GoFundMe is a substitute for life insurance, which it is not. Advance the slide. Who I am today. So I figured we had to go back to who I was to who I am. I am a divorced mother of 3. I'm a first generation college graduate. I'm the first in my family to earn a doctorate degree. I'm a director at the Community Food Bank. I'm an author of about 5 books. I'm the co-founder of Harlem Girl Inc. I am an adjunct professor, a licensed and ordained minister, a realtor. I'm walking in my purpose, which is the most exciting thing of all those things, and I am insured. So the one thing I know, if something happened today or tomorrow, my children will live better today than they do currently. All right, advance the slide. So let's talk about purpose. Purpose is defined as the reason for which something is done or created for which something exists. So that is a noun. So we know a noun, just the basic person, place, or thing. So when I think about purpose, I like to say in looking at this, so I can put my name, Elaine has purpose. I am the noun. I have purpose. Alonzo, you have purpose. Charles, you have purpose. And the other definition is have as one's intention or objective, which is a verb, which is an action word. So if Elaine has purpose, she has to do something with that purpose. So hence, when we're talking about stepping into it, it requires action, stepping, action. Advance the slide, please. Legacy. Many times we hear this and we think of, what are we leaving for our children? What is the thing? This is my legacy. So I found some quotes and meanings. So first it says, if you don't leave a legacy, then who will? Let's do it for our kids. And many times we have to think, if I'm leaving a legacy for my children, or if I die today or tomorrow, what will my children have, or what will my loved ones have as a result of me not being here? So for me, I have 3 children. So every time, anything that I do, I thank Charles for saying I have not aged since high school. However, the clock is ticking in this thing called life. So I have to think about, what is it that I'm leaving for them? So what the actions of today will speak to the future or speak to my tomorrow. So I have to start now, or I should have started before now. And if you haven't, it's not too late. But as long as we're breathing, there's an opportunity to get it right. There's an opportunity for us to get to our next. So one of my sayings is, get ready for your next in your now. The one thing my plan is to live until 101. I hope God is with me in that plan. But in the event that it does not happen, I know my children will be covered. All right. The other quote, it says, if you are going to leave a legacy, make a mark on the world that cannot be replaced. Even as a parent, if you have your parents, I have the experience that both of my parents are deceased. So I am their legacy. I carry the namesake, all of those things. But also you say, what is your mark? Are your children, I want my children to be able to go to college and not worry about the finances of it. I want my children to be able to buy a home and not worry about where I'm going to get the money. Being the first for myself as a first generation college grad, a first in my family to become a doctor, there were a lot of things of looking at a trailblazer. Did I do it for me? Honestly, when people ask that question, what is your why? My why, a lot of people say their why is their children. My why was my parents, because my children, and I know this may sound, they get what they get in terms of the lifestyle is what they're accustomed to. However, my parents, I know the sacrifices they made for me to become. So they were my why. So now my children, they reap the benefit of my why. Legacy as a meaning is the amount of money or property left to someone in a will. So that's very key, because many people, and I like to say many people of color, we will leave this transition without leaving legal documents in place for our children or for family members. And if not, what we will find is that's when the fight is, over who gets what, or she said I was supposed to have. Well, you can't argue if it's in black and white. Or you can argue, but you can't get it, right? So that's one aspect of understanding legacy, meaning money or property left to someone in a will. Legacy is also interchangeable with the words inheritance and birthrights. So even as we leave our legacy, what is the birthright that we're giving to our children and our children's children? Because wealth should be generational, should not stop at one particular. So if something happened to me, that my children, and that's it. But it's also training our children to understand money. Money is a tool. So we need to understand money works for us. We don't work for it. So from the moment that I realized money works for me, I don't work for it. Yes, I go to work, but when it comes, I have to give it direction. I need to tell my money where it's going. It does not have the opportunity to tell me where it's going. And many times what we do is we work backwards with money and we become a slave to money, opposed to realizing that no, you work for me. And the moment that we get that in our minds, then that's when the change begins to occur. Okay, advance the slide. Wealth building, as I just stated, it's a mindset. So how you think about money, I like to say this, what you speak is what you eat. So if I speak, oh, I'm broke. If I speak, oh, I never have enough money, then that's what I'm going to eat. I'll never have enough. Personally, I like to say if there's a gap, I'll say I'm in between blessings, which means it's on its way. It just hasn't arrived to me as of yet. So when we change our mindset about money, what we begin to do is say, okay, where am I directing you to go? So when I change my mindset, I also need to learn how to write things down. It's like building a budget. I like to use this analogy, and you can think about it, or you can type it in the chat. How many of you have gone to the 99-cent store and only came out of the store with something that was 99 cents? I'll wait. Thank you, Nicole. Never. You spend at least $5, $10, $15 or $20, sometimes depends, $100. And I hate to say this, we'll walk in like, oh, this is cute. Usually women, we do that. We're like, oh, this is cute. I don't need it, but it's cute. So now we just added on to something. So instead of buying that $5, you love Starbucks, right? I'm a Starbucks girl. But instead of spending $5 on coffee or whatever it is that you may like, you need to say, okay, how do I now take that $5 and give it direction? Because it will accumulate over time. Now, this is what I also will tell you, because I don't want anyone on here to think that this is something that, okay, she just got it. No, I actually had to learn this later in life. My parents did not teach it to me because they could not teach me what they did not know. School definitely did not teach it. And Charles and I went to a school that had business careers, so they did not teach it to us.
Nope,
I
just
had to
computer stuff.
Right, I was a computer science major. So it was Murray Bertram School of Business Careers, but they did not teach us about finances and money. So here are some of the things. This is a principle that I use. And again, I'm not a financial advisor. However, I find that this works. Pay yourself first. You're working, and if you cannot see the fruits of your labor, then you feel like you're just spinning your wheels. So if you pay yourself that 10%, 10% to charitable giving, whether that's your church, whether that is a organization that you believe in, whatever that looks like for you. Give away 10%. And then 10% of your money should be invested, right, in that. So that 10% that you're paying is your savings. I don't care, and this is for, if Macy's is having the best sale you have ever seen in your entire life, you do not spend that 10% that you have saved for yourself. Investing 10%. And looking at that, you want to be able to say, how can I put my money out that I can get a return on my money? So the 70% to pay your bills. And I know people say, well, wait a minute. That just means we have to give direction and make some adjustments, because it will do whatever we want to do, and whatever we don't want to do, we will make an excuse for. I'll say it again. We do what we want to do, and whatever we don't want to do, we will make an excuse for. So I said again, and here, the charitable giving, that's optional to you. But if you can at least start with paying yourself first and investing, then I think you feel better, because the more that you see your account grow, your bank account grows, you feel more empowered. The more you see your investment grows, because you're only as wealthy as you can be, as you can live without working. So if you can only live 2 paychecks, then you're only 2 paychecks wealthy. And you have to figure out, what is it that I want to do? So there has to be a plan. Develop multiple streams of income. And looking at who I am. I write books. I'm an adjunct professor. There are other things. There's some other things that I did not put in. I help other people write books. That becomes multiple streams of income, investments. So what's working for me while I'm asleep? Think about it from that aspect. All right, advance the slide. Protect your family. You know, as I told you, I grew up in New York. I grew up in Harlem, and I'm the youngest of 7. I have 4 brothers. If someone even thought they were going to bother me, my brothers were going to protect me. My sisters too, but my brothers are going to protect me. Think about that in the same financial and wealth. Protect your family. If something was to happen to you, or how would you protect the ones that you love, that they're not struggling? I have this saying about life insurance and funerals. Now, please note, this is the opinion of Elaine Sanders, okay? Not Charles and anyone else on here. When we look at funerals, when people are crying a whole lot, it's because they left with a whole lot of debt. When someone has left you financially secure, you're crying because you miss them, but you also know you can still live your life as if they were there, meaning financially. When that hardship comes, when you're trying to figure out, how do I pay the mortgage? How do I do these things? So protect your family. So remember, your purpose, your legacy, and wealth is connected to your family, and having life insurance is a key component. Advance the slide. And this is just my information on there if you want to connect. But I thank you again, Charles, for the opportunity, and I hope this was helpful.
Yes, thank you. It was very helpful. We'll hold the questions to the end. Thomas, would you mind introducing our next speaker?
Thank you, Charles, and thank you, Dr. Sanders, for that very informative presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor of introducing our next speaker. Jackson D. Robert is a mortgage loan consultant with Loan Depot. He's married with 2 kids, Hannah, age 11, and Ada, age 9. He walks clients through every step of the loan process and supports them from pre-approval through their closing date. He's licensed as a mortgage consultant in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Florida. He's also a real estate instructor Issuing authority is New York State Department of State, a Freddie Mac's Credit Smart curriculum instructor. He also volunteers as a founding member and current president of BNI Momentum Chapter in Bayside, New York. And BNI is the world's leading business networking and referral organization. He's also current director, Queens Realist Association, chapter of National Association of Real Estate Brokers. And he was a past director for the Bedford-Stuyvesant Real Estate Board Incorporated of National Association of Real Estate Brokers. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to introduce Robert Jackson. Excuse me, Jackson D. Robert.
Thank you. Thank you. My parents gave me 2 first names, so this way I can always have a conversation, you know. So actually my middle initial D stands for Dave, so I have 3 first names. And I always tell people, it doesn't matter if you call me Jackson, David, Robert, Jack, but as long as you call me. So Elaine, I'm gonna have a hard time following up because that was a great presentation. Thank you. It was really opening, you know, to see what you said, and, you know, letting people know that they need to take that and, you know, figure out how to apply it to create generational wealth. So let me start off by saying generational wealth is something that a lot of people say. But I also want to say that generational wealth is just not money, right? Generational wealth is information. I was lucky enough when I was growing up, I had my great-grandmother, my grandmother, and my granddad. So when I came home from grammar school, because my mom, you know, she was single, divorced, you know, raising 3 kids, I would go to my grandmother's house. And, you know, I thought I knew everything. And on Saturdays, when I did something wrong, I would have to sit down and explain to them what I did wrong. And they would, you know, give me the knowledge on what I needed to do and how to do it the right way. So we all have that power to provide knowledge. So in terms of generational wealth, it's about, you know, knowing and understanding how to create it. Who pays rent? Who has paid rent? You could just raise your hand. All right. Who has a mortgage? Who's had a mortgage? So think about if you pay rent, think about what you pay in 3 months, 6 months, over the course of a year. Think about what you pay over the course of 3 years, 5 years. Does your landlord give you a percentage of that back? Raise your hand if your landlord's giving you money back in the past 5 years. I don't see any hands up because, you know, they don't, right? You're renting a place, right? We all have to live somewhere. So owning something is very important, right? Instead of paying rent, you can actually own something. You can create generational wealth by, you know, purchasing a property. Doesn't have to be your forever home. It could be your starter home. But what that ends up doing, you're paying yourself first. Instead of paying someone, even if you're paying it, you know, $500 a month, that's $6,000 a year, right? Over 5 years, that's $30,000. You can look at what you pay in rent and translate that into a mortgage. And what you paid in rent, instead of going to someone else, right? If you own a property, you're building equity. You have an asset now. That asset you can leverage. It will grow in equity, right? It will grow in value. A lot of people say, hey, once I own a property, you know, I don't want to touch it. I just want to pay it off. But, you know, there's an opportunity where if you own an asset, property, you can do what's called a cash out refinance. And why would you do something like that? Why would you want to take equity from your property? Well, if you have credit cards, raise your hand if you have credit cards. All right. Credit cards are anywhere from 10 to 20%, right? Most people on average carry a balance for the most part. If you had the ability to pay off all your debt, credit cards, student loans, car loans, right? And put that into your mortgage, you're paying your mortgage There's no longer any debt, right? You're increasing your cash flow. Instead of taking that cash flow and applying it to your principal, now you're creating savings. The slide that Elaine had before, one of it said, pay yourself first, 10%, right? Then it said bills, debt, 70%. So one of the ways that you create generational wealth, right, is to utilize the money that you have effectively, right? How effectively can you use your money? Do you get a side hustle? Do you get a second job, a third job? We've all done it, right? But there's only so much you can do. You have to understand how to utilize your money the right way. If you continue to rent, the one thing I guarantee you when you rent is that you're giving yourself the opportunity for your landlord to increase your rent, right? So why not take the opportunity to figure out, how do I become a homeowner? If I am a homeowner, how do I figure out how to utilize the funds that I have more effectively, right? When you go to the supermarket, right, we go up and down the aisle, we pick what we want. And then when we get to the cash register, we say, okay, I have enough money to pay for it. What if you went to the cash register and realized you don't have enough money? When you don't use money effectively, that's what ends up happening. Life insurance. Your home is your largest asset. And you need to figure out, how do I increase my assets, take care of my family, protect my family, right? And having the right people in your circle is one of the most important things. Having the right people in your circle is the most important thing. Why? Because they're providing you knowledge. Everyone here is the CEO of your own life, right? Let me repeat that. Everyone here is the CEO of your own life. You get to choose and pick who you work with. Would you rather work with someone who's not going to respond to you, who's not going to give you the right information, who's not going to give you the right advice, or someone who's going to give you a consultation and lead you or advise you the things that you need to do, and you get to decide? Do you want to be the one who's deciding, or do you want to be the one that's being led? Right? Everyone can communicate. It's a conversation that we all have to have. I grew up in Brooklyn, in Flatbush, single mom, divorce. I was the first one to go to college. Yay! I was also the first one to drop out. Right? So I learned things the hard way, right? So I dropped out, but I went back, right? So if you don't have someone providing the information to you, what do? You learn by trial and error. And, if you're learning by trial and error, the one thing that you have to realize is there's going to be adversity. There's always going to be adversity. Adversity makes you stronger. But wouldn't it be easier if you didn't have to go through that adversity, right? It'd be so much easier. But you can't give up. And having the right people in your circle is going to allow you to create that generational wealth. I can talk until I'm blue in the face about FHA program, conventional program, renovation program, reverse mortgages. Are you looking to buy a multifamily, down payment assistance program? All of that information I can talk about, but you also have it in this. You can't see it, but I'm holding my cell phone. Growing up, my mom brought the Encyclopedia Britannica. That was a cell phone back in the day, right? And she was on a payment plan for about 10 years to pay for that thing, right? Now everyone has their cell phone, but we're still in the same position. People still don't have the right information to make the best decision for themselves, right? We need to surround ourselves with people who are going to lift us up, right? Not tear us down. People who are going to inspire us, right? People who are not going to be negative. People who are going to be positive. People who's going to say, hey, this is something I heard about. Maybe you should think about it, right? Fill your knowledge bank. When you find someone who's good nature, who understands what they're talking about and is looking out for you, put that person in your Rolodex, because they are hard to come by, right? You need to know that. And what's more important is we all hope to live to a certain point. Unfortunately, Father Time doesn't allow that, right? It doesn't allow that. So we have to take care of ourselves. More importantly, we have to take care of our family. We have to take care of our kids. And we have to have those conversations. What's your credit score? How much do you make? How much are you saving? Why are you spending money on that when you shouldn't, you know? Little things. I have a little jar. Now it's a big jar, and I have my kids do it. All the change that they have, instead of spending it, I tell them to put it in the change jar, right? It teaches them about savings. My son is always, can I get this Roblox? Can I get that? Can I get this? He's consuming as opposed to saving. We want to cut down on consuming and change that mindset into saving, investing, creating passive income. Passive income is income that works for you when you don't have to do anything. That's very important. So I always tell someone who's a first-time home buyer, if you have the ability to purchase a home, instead of buying a single family, buy a two-family. Why? Passive income. You may not want to be a landlord, but that passive income, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, you're going to say, wow, why didn't I think about that sooner? Guess what? I'm a mortgage person. I graduated after I went back to school. I graduated college. I moved into the city. I was doing mortgages for about 10 years. I was paying rent. I wasted all of that money, and I'm in the business, right? You learn the hard way when you don't have someone who is advising you, mentoring you, and we typically get that from family or friends or if a professional advisor. If you don't have that, you don't even know that you don't know, right? We don't know what we don't know. And you wonder, why can't we get ahead, right? You have to have the people in your life that's going to help advance you. And you have to have those conversations because you're the CEO. You get to hire the individuals that are going to help you to get to the point that you want to be. So, like I said, I can talk until I'm blue in the face about how to go about getting, pre-approved, how to work on your credit, how to, purchase a home, how to, get a down payment assistance. My main point that I want to convey today is that I want to empower you to take the responsibility that you already have, that you are the CEO of yourself, and start to create your team. Start to ask questions. Who is my financial advisor? Who is my insurance person? Who is my mortgage banker? You may not have these things now, but you need to have these conversations to get yourself on a plan. Take a look at your bank statement on a yearly basis. They should come out one every year, whatever bank you have, they'll give you a yearly statement and see how much money that was spent on miscellaneous. What if you had saved that? Better yet, look at your tax refund. Where does that money go? Where is it being applied to? Right? If you own a home or if you own a car, are you getting the best available rates for yourself? Or are you just accepting that bill that comes to you? Right? These are all things that we need to ask. Don't just accept it, right? Because when you run a business, you're responsible for that business, right? You need to do everything's possible to make sure that it's running effectively, that it's profitable, and that it's going to continue to grow. If not, what ends up happening, right? Most businesses fail within 2 years. But most people don't realize that they're on that same path because they don't have savings, right? They don't have insurance. They're living paycheck to paycheck, but they're not having those conversations. Or they may think they have things, but they're not, necessarily looking at how can I grow this? How do I better put myself in a position for tomorrow? So with that, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer it. You have my contact information there. I feel it's important the same way that you go to a doctor, or that you should be going to a doctor once a year for a checkup. You should be doing a mortgage checkup, even if you don't own a property, right? Insurance checkup, a financial advisor checkup. You need to do all of these things, right? Because if you don't have that information, how can you make the best position? How can you make the best decision for yourself and your family? So with that, I'll bring it back to the group because I think it's better to have Q&A than for me to continue on talking.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jackson. That was very, very incredible speech, and also Dr. Sanders as well. That's exactly why I want to have these. I have these lunch and learn or brunch and wealth workshops. I wanted to create a forum, for our community where people can come in. No sales pitches here, and just really to get some valuable information. Because I heard Dr. Sanders say we didn't learn this in high school. When we went to high school for business careers, you would think that would be one of the curriculums. It wasn't until I got into this industry actually and actually start studying and talking to other advisors what's going on in Long Island. Why do these clients over in Long Island have 250,000 million policy, and when I go to Brooklyn it's a 10,000 final expense, and it really doesn't cover the expenses. But with that said, I want to turn it over. Nicole, I can't see the chat, but Nicole, did any questions come through the chat? Nicole, address those, and then what we'll do, we'll open up. You can unmute yourself, town hall style, and these speakers are willing to answer any questions that you will have. Nicole, is there any questions that came through chat?
Charles, currently no. I did ask one question: how often do you do a financial checkup? And Jackson did respond, at least once a year. So this is good to know, because for me, I tend to do it like probably every 3 to 5 years. So at least once a year, I will actually do a financial checkup.
You should do a financial checkup, right? The same way you check your credit once a year.
Great
right?
idea.
And the same thing, right? So the same way you change, right? The changing the seasons, you change the batteries in your smoke detector, right? Perfect time. That's when you spring cleaning, you're changing the batteries in the smoke detector. You're checking your credit once a year. You're doing a financial checkup, once a year. This way you make sure that you're on track. Make sure that your credit, with everything that's going on online, credit piracy, people stealing information is ridiculous. So you need to be checking your credit at least once a year to make sure everything on there is correct. And it gives you the same, time while you're doing that to do your financial checkup, do your home checkup, whether it's, renting, whatever. You always got to, make sure that you're replacing the fire extinguisher, the batteries, and the carbon monoxide. So it just plays into the same thing.
I also have another question. I know that, oh, hold on. Kathy actually did submit a question. She said, do you have a resource for completing wills? Charles?
Sorry, do I have a resource?
Kathy wanted to know, Kathy Phillips wanted to know if you have a resource for completing wills.
For completing wealth, you mean to obtaining wealth? Yes, to obtain wealth. Yes, there's many different vehicles that you have. That's why it's important to sit down, with an advisor. We have there's retirement plans that you have. There's qualified retirement plans that you can go with. There's also non-qualified retirement plans.
It's the family will, Charles.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. For family wealth,
Not wealth, will. WILL.
Oh, to create a will.
Yeah.
Do we have? Well, that's where Allison Bass was. She was the estate planning attorney. Unfortunately, she couldn't join us today. But yes, I can refer you to we have estate planning lawyers that we work with that can definitely help you to create a will or even a trust if that's something that you need. We don't do that. That has to be done by an attorney.
Okay, so we have another question. How do you handle Christmas gifts given to the kids, family, and friends? And you have no kids. Oh, okay. So how do you handle Christmas gifts given for kids, family, and friends, and you don't have any kids, and try to stay with your plan to pay yourself?
I'll take that one. One, understand the power of no. No is a complete sentence, which does not need an explanation. So you have to ask yourself this: why am I doing it if I'm not saving so that people can feel a certain way? You can be creative and create a Christmas gift opposed to buying or asking the question, what is it that you want? Also, I would say, create the budget. If it's not in the budget, then you can't do it. So I think we have to understand, like, what is the priority? And especially if we're not paying ourselves first. So, and I have 3 children. I know what happens on Christmas. You give them gifts, they play with it for 2 or 3 days, and then they put it down. So you just wasted X amount of dollars on something that you could have, that could be working for you. And this gift now is working against you because just by reading this question, you have no kids. So you then become the target. I used to be that person in terms of everyone wanted me to be the godparent because I didn't have children until in my 30s. So I was like, no, because I understood what that meant to them. She has no children, which means she has income to spend on mine. So I hope I answered your question.
Great response, Dr. Sanders. There is another question from Wednesday Williams. She stated that she needs a revocable trust created. So, Charles, you're on mute.
I can handle that one for him. I mean, Ms. Williams, the best thing to do, I'm not sure who invited you to the event. You can get back with the representative who invited you to the event, and we'll definitely connect you with our estate planning attorneys, and we can definitely help you to build out your trust fund or your irrevocable trust.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for the speakers? That's with Dr. Sanders or Mr. Robert. You can unmute yourself. Dr. Sanders, I have a question for you. It's going back to the slide that you had here, to pay yourself first. Like, how did you learn this? Because as you discussed, we didn't learn this in school. How did you come to learn? How did you come to learn and study these topics that you have here?
I'm gonna say something that Jackson said. There's a wealth of knowledge. So I learned to reading things, and one of my favorite, I guess, money kind of gurus is Susie Orman. So this is before Susie Orman became Susie Orman. So she was on Channel 13. And I think my youngest daughter was probably 6 months. My oldest daughter was like 6 months. And I had sleep deprivation and I was flipping channels. And I watched her. And that whole principle about every time you break a dollar, save the change. And so then I listened to the PBS, and then I started buying the books to start reading on these things. And then I said, you know what? Let me give it a try. So I think they say if we do something for, I believe it's 48 or 72 hours, then we can develop a new habit. So I had to start saying it. And I even was in a place because I added in divorce, because when you get divorced, your money changes. And your access, because where there was two, now there's one. So I had to realize, I kept saying, well, you don't have it. And I said to myself, if I don't have it now, I'm never going to have it. So I have to put a pause and make sure I'm going to give direction. So it was trial and error. And that's why I said it's not too late, because I got divorced in my 40s. So I hope that helped.
I got to say that I too am a big Susie Orman fan. I purchased her, books, her credit, all of it, because it's straightforward information and it is not taught anywhere at all. And the sad thing is that, by the time a child goes to, finishes high school or goes to college, they'll have a cell phone, right? They may have some credit cards, and they don't realize the financial havoc that can be caused by not paying, cell phone bill. Verizon, they'll put you in collection for, $100. Your credit score will drop down significantly, and it'll take 7 years before that could take off. Credit cards, things of that nature. So Susie Orman, Channel 13, if you want to invest in something, invest in that, get those products from her. It definitely is straightforward, easy to read, and it teaches, things that they're not taught in grammar school, they're not taught in high school, they're not taught in college, they're not taught in graduate school. And if you're talking to friends, they're just saying what they know. So it's something that you have to talk about. Credit, your credit score is your personality. Because when a bank, a lender, when you go get lease your car, they're looking at that. And the difference between someone who's paying, $500, $400, or $189, for a top tier credit is understanding your credit. I went into a dealership to get a car, and they were telling me I had to pay, almost $500. Like, why? My credit score is in the 700s. So, no, your credit score is like 569. I said, let me take a look at that. Well, they had some guy named David Jackson up in your show. I'm like, I have 3 first names, but that's not my name. So you have to check your credit. Because if you're not checking, no one else will. And guess who's going to get taken advantage of? We will, right? Because you're just going to assume, well, they must know what they're talking about. This is the best I can get, then this is what I can get. No, it's not. Whether it's buying a car, leasing a car, renting an apartment, buying a house, all of these things play into it. It affects our lives, and if you don't take control of it, it will control you, and you won't know because it's an undercurrent, and you wonder why. If you're paying 10 to 20 to 30% above what you're supposed to be paying on everything, how much do you think you could save, right? But if you know all these things and you could save that 10 to 30% extra, that's money that you're saving. That's cash flow to pay down the credit cards, right? To create a cushion. These are things you have to work on. And the one thing, I do presentations all the time. Before COVID, I spoke. I've been doing this for 20 years. My mom, she got divorced. She wanted to buy a house, and she couldn't find anyone to help her, right? So she never bought, and she always regretted that. And I make sure that when I'm talking with someone, whether they're a first-time home buyer or they own their home, or if they buying a second home, buying investment property, I'm reviewing everything because I'm looking at everything. I'm looking at the tax returns. I'm looking at the pay stubs. I'm looking at the W-2. I'm telling them, hey, I see that I have you pre-approved, but I also see in your bank statement, you're running a deficit. These are things that you have to talk about, right? To make sure that when you own the home, you keep the home, right? So these are conversations that you have to have. We talk about everything else. We'll talk about the movie. We'll talk about the games, we'll talk about what's on TV, right? But how many times are we having conversations about credit, financial, and stuff like that? You have to have those conversations.
So
I have
my
a
question,
question.
go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. You can go. Go ahead.
So Jackson, my question for you actually, and I don't know if you've experienced this, as I don't know many mortgage originators who have. I have one here in Connecticut. Are you familiar with the concept of a collateral assignment, which is using life insurance as an asset? If it's in force for at least 2 years, I can actually use that. For example, if you were qualifying me for a multifamily, you would take 75% of the other units. You're aware that life insurance is an asset, and have you ever seen anybody use their life insurance as a collateral assignment to qualify for a multifamily?
Yeah, we use retirement for that, all the time. Your retirement, your 401k, your 403b, if you work for the city, assets are just assets, right? And you can use that, to cover, whether it's reserves or things of the mortgage financing process. So it doesn't matter what asset class is. The good thing about mortgages, there's nothing that is not known. You can go on to the website Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. That's the guidelines for every single lender. Now it'll probably be about 3,000 pages, but it's the same guidelines for everyone, right? But no one's going to go through that. No one's going to read that. They're not going to know what the terminology and things of that nature. That's why you go to someone who understands it. It's going to hold you, advise you the right way to go about things. A lot of people don't buy because they think, oh, I have to put 20% down. No, you don't. Especially not in New York. You're not going to have 20%. Right? You could put down 3.5%. You could put down 3%. State of New York Mortgage Agency, Sonny Mae, they provided 3% down payment assistance, right? So now instead of having to come up with the down payment assistance plus your closing costs, now you just have to come up with your closing costs. Because if you're living in New York, more than likely you can own a home because the rent's so high, right? Now, it may not be a forever home, but it's a home that you will purchase. And instead of giving your opportunity, let me ask you a question. You can raise your hand. How many people want to give their landlord the opportunity to raise your rent for the next 5 years? Okay, how many people want to give your landlord the opportunity to decrease your rent for the next 5 years?
Everybody.
Do you think they're going to do that?
No.
Okay. So now you got a decision. You either continue to pay higher because inflation is going to keep going, right? But if you're paying higher rent, at some point you have to say, what I'm paying a rent, I can own. So how do I figure out how do I become a homeowner? Right? That's the question. That's the step, right? How do I use the money I have more effectively? If I own a home, should I pay off my debt to, if I'm paying, $300 in credit card or, credit cards and, car loans and student loans, if you could save yourself, a portion of that, you times that monthly, that's cash flow that you can now create a nest egg, right? So like I say, we can talk about the game. The Knicks won. They beat Philadelphia, right? I can talk, all weekend about that. But I guarantee you, no one's going to be like, so how's your insurance policy doing? Right? Hey, do you have your will in place? No, no one's going to talk about that. And if you do talk about that, I'll send you a free book because I haven't heard anyone have a conversation about that in the 20 years I've been doing mortgages. We'll talk about everything else, but we won't talk about that. And I want to empower you to have those conversations. Don't be afraid. Even if it's a dumb question, who cares? You know, it doesn't matter. The point is, wealth building is just not monetary. It's informational. The more information you have, the better it is for you. If someone said to you, all right, I want you to drive over to Charles's office, right? And so I don't know how to get there. Well, how do you get there? Are you going to listen to someone who's never been there before? Are you going to use WhatsApp? Are you going to Google it? You're using information, right, for you to get to the destination that you want, right? And that's all. And this is what this group is. Charles bringing on speakers to provide the information so you can make the best decision for each of you. I don't want to preach because my dad is a preacher, so I tend to go off sometimes.
All right. I guess we got time for another question. Yes. Another two
Okay.
questions.
My question is, if when dealing with the financial hardship and you have a credit card and you have good credit, the credit is good, but you're looking to cut costs and you want to get rid of that credit card, is it better to hold on to that credit card because you still have the good credit? Or would it make a difference if you got rid of it or held on to it because you have good credit?
Well, in terms of getting rid of it, depends, right? If you're saying you never want to close out your credit because your credit is your history. So, you know, I've had people close out their credit and their credit score drop. And they're like, I don't know why that happened. Well, you just, you know, closed out a 10-year account, right? So now you don't have that history. So you have to, it depends on how you're trying to relieve that hardship with the credit card. You know, is there an opportunity for them to, you know, reduce the payment? Can they reduce the interest on it? Do you have the ability to, you know, transfer it over to another credit card that provides zero interest for a certain amount of time? You know, these are things that you have to, you know, ask the credit card company if that makes sense. But
Makes sense.
it's not an easy question to answer because there's more that needs to be known.
Well, I know that, well, it is low. It's not, I was looking to cut costs in the sense of paying the interest rate, the AP rate that you have to pay for it, even if you're not using it.
Well, if you're not using it nowadays, there are credit cards where, you know, you don't have, they're not charging you a fee anymore. You know, the disruption in this world now is just, it's all over the place. So there are credit card companies, there are banks that charge you a fee just to have an account. And there are other banks and other credit cards that don't charge you that because they realize, why am I charging for something just to have it? You know? So if that's the case, then you can always transfer to one of those credit cards or a bank that's not going to charge those fees. And that just comes down to you know, doing the research. I'm sorry, I gotta run. I'll be right back. I forgot to leave the door open for my son who's coming from school.
Well, we are actually wrapping up, so I don't know if we have time for one more question. If not, I definitely want to thank everyone. It was a pleasure. Thank you, Dr. Elaine Sanders. We really appreciate very impactful presentation you have. Also, we also have 10 books from Dr. Sanders. So they will be distributed to the to our attendees that's on the call, and we will have a meeting on Monday and have a drawing, and we'll be in touch with you to really give the books. I want to thank Jackson D. Robert. I could tell before the meeting, we were saying, was it Robert Jackson or Robert David Jackson? But you cleared that up for us. It's Jackson Robert. And we really appreciate you. I mean, you stepped in at the drop of a dime to cover for Allison. There was a lot of questions for Allison here. I would make a Nicole, you want to write those questions down? We'll reach out to Allison, and we get the answers for you, because I don't want you to feel we couldn't answer the question. All right. So some of the quick takeaways was, I know we had the, your money works for you, Dr. Sanders. She said that a lot. Your money works for you, but you don't work for it. Right. Both speakers said pay yourself first. And that's a good margin at 10%. That's a really good margin. So what I believe they mean is take 10% of your gross income and just put that away. Just put that into some type of savings and just forget about it and let that accumulate. You'd be surprised over 6 months to a year with interest, what that would actually grow through. Protect your family. That's very important. I know when I first started this industry, I heard a story about the goose and the golden egg. They said if you had a goose that laid golden eggs, who would you put the insurance on? Would you insure the eggs, or would you insure the golden goose that laid the eggs? Right. So it's actually, you want to put the insurance on the golden goose that lays the eggs, so they can continue to lay the golden eggs. So that's how you really want to protect your family. Everyone here is the CEO of your own life, of your own corporation. I love that quote. I wrote that down. If everyone runs their household or their finances like they are, hold on a second. If everyone runs their household as if they are CEOs, be really great. So thank you everyone for coming in. We have information on a lot of products and services. Just go, you see the website there, cgwealth.financial. There's a lot of information there. You see the contact information. Need any further information from Dr. Sanders or Jackson Robert, I'm sure you can reach out and they'll be more than happy. So with that said, everyone, I want to thank you and have a happy Halloween. A very safe weekend, and be safe for everyone. Thank you so much for attending, and be on the lookout for the next Brunch and Wealth. We appreciate everyone. Have a good day. All right.